All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining. I am really excited about being here today, and I'm really excited about covering digital transformations for PMOs. My name is Bill Dow. I have 30 plus years of hands-on experience. I'm the Director of Project Management, PMO within University of Washington. I was at Microsoft for almost 14 years. I ran 8 PMOs there. Singular and AT&T, I ran a PMO there. And in 2020, I was actually named one of the top 16 PMO leaders of the world from the PMO Global Awards, which was just an amazing recognition. So really excited about that. Been a speaker since 2008. Been presented around the world, PMO conference in London, Toronto, Las Vegas, San Diego, Vancouver. I've got a great Dow Publishing LLC channel on YouTube where I've got tons of videos up there. I've got a blog at BillDowPMP.com. I'm a 4-time author, the PMO Lifecycle, Building, Running, Shutting Down, Project Management Communication Tools, Tactical Guide for Building a PMO, which was #1 for years on Amazon, and Project Management Communication Bible, which was my first book I published in 2008, all under my company, DowPublishingLLC.com. We've got a great agenda. We're going to talk about the definition. We'll talk about digital transformation and PMO services. We'll look at a roadmap. We'll talk about real-time status, and we'll summarize. Sound good? Awesome. Digital transformation, we have to start with the definition, right? Is the adoption of digital technology to replace manual processes with digital processes. This is one of the most simplistic definitions I've ever seen, and the one I like the most because when I'm explaining this, frankly, it makes the most sense and people get on the same page with this, right? We're taking manual processes and we're digitizing them. Digital transformation can mean so many different things for so many different companies. But for our purposes today, let's go with this simple definition. So let's look at digital transformation for PMOs. Oh, wait. Before we do that, I gotta pause for a sec. Are we clear on that definition? Taking manual processes and digitizing them, right? Are we good on that? Great. Why do I ask? Because when we Google it or we Bing it, we get very different definitions. Now, I get Google and Bing are different. I get the search results are different. That's not my point. My point is when we do the exact same search and we go into these articles, you're going to see very different definitions. So for today's purposes, we're going to use manual processes to digital processes. That's what we're going to use, and that's how we'll keep going through this presentation because it's the simplest and it makes the most sense. So digital transformation for PMOs can mean very different things for different things for different project managers as well, and PMO managers. There's no right or wrong definitions, but it's something that PMO managers should be prepared to know how to address when the leadership comes to them and says, hey, we need to digitally transform your PMO. So let's keep going with our manual process to digital process definition for now, but let's just keep going. But I have a question. There's just this ton of rush to digitally transform your PMO. Tons of companies have to digitally transform. My question is why? Why is that? What is the need to rush to digitally transform your PMO? Is it to be cool? Are you solving a business problem? Is it because your management said so? You told the market it's going to address your stock price. Your stock price is going to fluctuate because you've digitally transformed your PMO. What is the rush? Let me give you some advice. You need to crawl, walk, run with this. You need to look at your PMO processes and your services and digitize what makes sense. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. That doesn't make sense, right? You have to be solving a business problem. Does that make sense? So what are some of the services of a PMO? From those services, which one can be transformed? What problems are you trying to solve by transforming? Are we transforming for the sake of transforming? Do we get any productivity gain? Do we save on hiring? Can PMs manage more projects? What about other services, reporting and tools, for example? What does it mean to digitally transform those areas? Right? Lots of good questions that PMO managers and leaders need to evaluate when we're thinking about digitally transforming our PMO. So let's look at some typical service offerings. Intake, tools, reporting. I'll give you a minute to look at those. Portfolio, project, business analysis, right? Just a sampling will clearly differ from PMO to PMO, right? Just a sampling, but these are some of the typical service offerings. Okay? So when I'm asked on how to do and how do I digitally transform my PMO, my first place I go to is the standard definition of digital transformation and then apply those to my PMO processes and services. Does that make sense? You want to crawl, walk, run, but I'm going to look at my manual processes, status reporting, intake, prioritization, financials. Can I make those digital? Then I'm going to document the benefits of making those digital. Right? So if I have status reportings and it takes them, an hour a week to create a Word document, for example, and I put that online, it saves them 2 to 3 hours. I take some notes and then I say, is this a candidate to transform? So I say yes or no, and I go through all my processes, and essentially I'm going to look at intake, prioritization, and I'm going to rinse and repeat throughout all my PMO processes. Does that make sense? So we start to digitize these processes for your PMO. You need to complete the inventory of the manual processes and determine which ones can be digitized and why. The documenting of why is one of the most important aspects of performing this process. Why are we doing it? Right? Without truly understanding the why you need to digitize, you're doing this for the sake of doing it and nobody benefits. That make sense? So you're just going to keep going. You're going to have this inventory. You're going to make your inventory complete. You go through all your processes. Your inventory is complete. And now you're ready to roadmap. So now what you do is you build your roadmap of PMO processes and services to digitize. Right? So you'll look at your PMO processes, status, financial, your intake, your prioritization, whatever the case may be, you put them on the calendar, and now you've got this great view of how and when you're going to digitize your processes. Again, now you start scheduling them, you're treating them like a project. They're not going to be done overnight. So now you've got this great graph and this great view to really help drive that conversation with how you're going to digitize your PMO. Make sense? You guys like that? Yeah. So start executing on digitizing your PMO processes and services to move your PMO into the future. However, before you start, do understand there will be some trade-offs and things to consider. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at those now. I like to call it real-time status because the more and more data that you get into databases and into dashboards and you get from manual processes to automated processes and you have that project information online, what's going to now require, what will be required is really that real-time status. Okay? So great news. You've started to digitize and transform your PMO's manual processes. By doing that, you've saved time, energy, resources, time on manual process. Everything's great. But guess what? You actually may have caused many other issues. Let's look at those. The mobile phone has changed the business world. I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. What I mean is the phone has changed the dynamics on how fast people want and expect information. Access to project information is no exception. If I pick up my phone and I get instant access to my reports and my dashboards, that changes the dynamics around reporting consideration and needs for PMs around the world. What do I mean by that? Let's spend some time and look at that. Okay? So, the first thing you have to have in place is you have to have mobile versions of your apps. Okay, Power BI, Project, Teams, Office, Planner, SharePoint, right? The millions of different softwares out there, and that's really not the point, but the point is you got to start getting your project information onto that mobile platform. So you got to have the mobile apps in place and all supported by the infrastructure of your company, and then what you're going to start doing is getting your project information onto that mobile platform. By using the mobile apps, you must consider and put together a whole new level of communication strategy for your project data, right? PMO and project managers are going to have to cater and have project information continually updated to make reporting and dashboards real time. Okay, continually updated to make reporting and dashboards real time. Stakeholders who have real-time access to data are going to expect that data to be fresh, or it defeats the purpose of real-time data access. So things need to change in your PM processes to be able to make this data available. Does that make sense? Okay, so going to real time changes the dynamics and changes your communication strategy. So let's look at this again. You've got project information, schedule, budget, status, documents, right? Which ones can go real time? Which ones have mobile versions? And then what's the update process? My schedule, I go from a weekly update to a daily. My status, weekly up to daily. Budget, probably not, but let's just go with it. Project documents, real-time access. Project dashboards and reports, real-time access. So what are we doing here? We are looking at the update process, right? We're shifting from weekly to daily, real-time access that's always available. And when we go to mobile and we expect that, that's a huge shift, right? This is not a simple process. Try telling 35 or 40 project managers working on multiple projects, you now go from a weekly update to a daily update. Okay? So let's look at this again in a little bit more detail. Status reporting, right, for a project manager, right? Currently, the project manager puts a status report in weekly or monthly, depending on the size, the complexity, all sorts of considerations there. With stakeholders needing real-time access to project information, it will require PM shifting to ongoing project updates, daily at a minimum, adding additional tasks to the project manager's role. Think about that. If you're doing it once a week and now you have to do it once a day, there's an additional burden, tax if you want to call it. Will it get better over time? Yes. Is this even possible? Yes. But the point of going to real-time access is going to require daily updates. Okay? That is a major shift in how we look at how we do and access and provide and update our project information. So real-time project information is going to make project managers change their existing processes across the board. Tool changes, process changes, and it's not going to happen overnight. We're in some exciting times, and project teams are going to have to make these adjustments to make this even possible, right? You're going to want to watch for the latest software updates on the various mobile options that we have. We're seeing more and more features and enhancements all the time, which is great. But this is a huge shift when we start thinking about making things available on the mobile platform. So as we summarize with digital transformation, it's an exciting way to move your PMO forward. There's no question, right? But frankly, I don't see a lot of consistency in how this is executed across the industry. Go Google it, go Bing it, go look at those results as much as I have. There'll be no one size fits all on how to digitize your PMO. Don't let any company tell you this is the way you have to do it. It's going to require a slow burn for most PMOs because you're still balancing the execution of your programs and your projects and your governance and your intake and your prioritization and your dashboards and your reports, right? You can't flip this overnight. I've done this for years. I've ran 10 PMOs. My biggest suggestion is crawl, walk, run with this. Set expectations with your leadership. It can't be done overnight, and it's going to require some extra tax and extra burden on the PMs initially to be able to move to this mobile strategy and provide this real-time access to this data. I want to thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. If you want more information about building, running, shutting down PMOs, PMO life cycles, updated and published on 2017, updated in 2020. It's a really great selling book. I've done really great with that. Here's my contact information: Twitter, Facebook, dowpublishingllc.com. Again, my 2 books are up on Amazon. I'm going to open it now for questions. I want to thank you all for your time and have a great day.